I spent the weekend reading Magnolia Parks by Tessa Hastings, and I don't think this book will work for everyone, but I think the people it will work for, it will work for, like, very well. Like, I have been loving my time reading Magnolia Parks, but I just don't think it's for everyone. And so I'm going to give you a little litmus test to see if this book is for you. 1, you have to thoroughly enjoy Chuck and Blair's relationship in Gossip Girl. Like, being a Gossip Girl fan is a prerequisite. And not only that, you have to like Chuck and Blair's relationship. Like, it has to be the main reason you watch the show, honestly. It is, like, crucial. The main couple we're following in this relationship, and that's mostly what this is about BJ and Magnolia, are, like, Chuck and Blair in London. You also have to enjoy kind of, like, the rich people dynamics of Gossip Girl. So if, like, rich people being rich and solving their problems with money and, like, being able to behave badly without consequences because they're wealthy is not something you want to read about, then this is probably not the book for you. While the main relationship is, like, 75% Chuck and Blair from Gossip Girl, I do think the other 25% is Marianne and Connell from Normal People. Not because we're having conversations around class, but because BJ and Magnolia are unable to communicate. They are unable to communicate, but you can tell that they should be together. Like, if you die for the line, I'm not a religious person, but I think God might have made you for me from Normal People, then I've got some lines for you. I think also you need to be aware that the writing style is, like, pretty unique. These books are, like, a little bit on the longer side, and there's not a strong central plot arc. What's really pushing the story forward is this, like, will they, won't they between BJ and Magnolia. Like, will they get together or won't they get together? And that's, like, the whole kind of story, the whole narrative. The writing is not, like, super literary, but it is a rather unique writing style. It does feel a lot of times like they're speaking, like, directly to you. They will, like, break that, like, fourth wall and, like, speak directly to the reader. You should also be aware that the second book is not, we follow this first couple, that's all we're doing, and then we're left on kind of a little bit of, like, a cliffhanger, and then we switch characters. And it is a little bit jarring, but if you enjoyed the writing of the first, I think you'll enjoy the second too. Hi, my name is Michelle, and this is a Magnolia Parks reading vlog. So for this video, I read all 3 of the Magnolia Parks books that are out. So that's Magnolia Parks, Daisy Haites, and Magnolia Parks Long Way Home. And I wanted to talk a little bit about them and my reading experience. That's what most of this video is. But before we jumped into it, I wanted to give kind of like an introduction to what this series is about. I think one of the hardest parts about getting into this series is there is, like, a lot of characters introduced without, like, not very clearly. Tessa Hastings' strength is not introducing characters, and so I'm going to put up a visual aid and kind of talk you through some of the big players and kind of the premise for the series before we jump into the actual reading vlog. Okay, I'm gonna give you, like, a brief introduction to, like, what the heck is happening, because I think the hardest part about getting into this book is there are so many characters thrown at you so quickly, and I don't feel like Tessa Hastings does, like, a great job introducing them. You get used to them, like, pretty quickly, but initially you're like, who the heck are they? And there's a lot of them. So I'm gonna kind of run you through kind of the main players. You're mostly gonna be focused on the left side of the screen for Magnolia Parks. This kind of crew gets introduced mostly in Daisy Haites. We'll kind of talk about how that overlaps. So Magnolia Parks and BJ Valentine are our main characters. That's why they have B's next to them, because they're also our narrators. So Magnolia Parks is this rich girl. Her parents, Harley and Ari. Harley is a music producer. He's, like, produced, like, all the music, all of it. Elton John is Magnolia's godfather. Like, that's the vibes we're going with. Magnolia is also biracial. So Harley is black and Ari is a, like, Russian woman. And her mom's name is Bushka, and that's Magnolia's Russian grandma. And we love Bushka. She's a cool Russian grandma. And then Magnolia has a younger sister named Bridget. Magnolia is, like, 22, I think, when the book starts. And Bridget is, like, 20. And then we also have in Magnolia's family, or family adjacent, we have Marcelly. So Magnolia's parents kind of, like, were not great at being parents, you know? That wasn't really their vibe. And so they hired a nanny, and Marcelly was kind of, like, Magnolia's mom, the maternal figure in her life. And she is a 22-year-old who still has a nanny, and that is a point that is brought up several times throughout the novel. Like, isn't that kind of weird that you still have a nanny as a 22-year-old? But she does very much, like, live at home still and, you know, use her parents' money for everything. This book Magnolia Parks mostly follows the relationship between Magnolia and BJ. BJ Valentine being another rich boy. I don't remember why he's rich. I don't recall. But they started dating when Magnolia was 13 and BJ was 15. And they dated for years and years and years. But 2 years ago, when the novel starts, they broke up. Something happened and they broke up. But they, like, had, like, a soulmate level connection. There's, like, an inevitability to their eventual getting together. But, like, it is on again, off again, like you wouldn't believe. But now they're, like, friendly with each other. They have a relationship with each other. And this is kind of like the friend group. This is like the friend group, minus Bridget. Bridget is really not in the friend group. She's like sometimes adjacent to the friend group, but she's the younger sister. So Magnolia's best friend is actually Henry, who's BJ's younger brother. Magnolia and Henry were friends before Magnolia and BJ started dating. So now, like, they're all in a big friend group. And then we also have BJ's best friends, who are the Haites brothers. We've got Jonah, who's the older brother, and Christian, who is the younger brother. I think BJ and Jonah are the same age, and Henry, Magnolia, and Christian are the same age, but I'm not 100% sure. They also all went to boarding school together, and so, like, they became sort of like a family. The Haites brothers are involved in, like, crime in some way. We're just, like, we, like, vaguely wave at the fact that, like, their family does crime. That's where their money comes from. Like I said, Jonah is the older brother. I would say him and BJ are a little bit closer than Christian and BJ. And Christian's younger brother, he gets to be in the bigger box and have a circle because he's actually a narrator in the Daisy Haites novels, which we'll get to in a minute. But for the Magnolia Parks novel, he's kind of an adjacent character in kind of I would say, like, this is the friend group mostly. And then these two are, like, adjacent to the friend group. But Christian and Magnolia did also date for, like, one hot second. So that did happen. And then we have Paley and Perry. Like I said, Paley and Perry are, like, pretty flat characters. We, like, really care about the boys and Magnolia and Bridget. But, like, Paley and Perry, like, we know very little about. Essentially, right after BJ and Magnolia broke up, BJ, like, got the boys and Magnolia got these two. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I don't know if Perry is a girl or a boy. Initially, I thought Perry was a girl. And then I was like, oh, no, he's a gay man. And then I was like, no, I think he might be a girl. And then I think he might be a gay man. So, like, it's very unclear to me if Perry is a man or a woman. I wish I could tell you. So that's kind of like the core friend group there. Then we're introduced to Tom England. Tom England is the richest man in the UK, which is why his last name is England. If he becomes not the richest man, he has to give the last name back. That's not true. I don't know why his last name is England. That seems a little bit silly. But he's really rich. He's a pilot. He is, like, a really eligible bachelor. He's, like, a few years older than all of them. I think he's, like, 30. And him and Magnolia have always had some, like, chemistry. They, like, run in the same circles because they're rich. And there's always been some, like, chemistry between them. And then we also have Gus. Gus, like, shows up all the time in both these novels, and I feel like we know nothing about him except he's, like, friends with Tom and Julian. We don't know anything about him. Anyway, but he's kind of important because he, like, is the one who I think first introduces Magnolia to Tom. Maybe? I don't know. But he's there. He's there. And then we get the Daisy Haites novels. So we do meet Julian and Daisy in the novels, but if Daisy Haites didn't have her own novel, I would not have put them on this map. Essentially, Daisy and Julian are also in a crime family. So the Haites brothers are crime family and the Haites are crime family. So Julian is the head of the crime family. Both of their parents were killed when Julian was 18, and he took over leadership of the crime family, and he also took over guardianship of Daisy. So Daisy has been raised by Julian since she was about 8 years old. So they have kind of a brother-sister, but also, like, father-daughter sort of relationship. It is the best thing about their books. It's so good. What a delight. And Julian is pretty good friends with Jonah. Jonah. And Daisy, when we meet Daisy, is having a little romance with Christian. That's where we pick up with Daisy. Daisy also had, like, a childhood love similar to Magnolia and BJ, but hers was with a boy named Romeo. Which, is that on the nose? Yes. But we love it anyway. So Romeo and her dated for, like, a long time when they were kids. They had a breakup a few years back. But, like, there's still, like, romantic tension there because they, like, grew up together. They were each other's first loves. All that jazz. Daisy Haites' best friend's name is Jack. He, like, serves very little purpose except that he is her best friend. Oh, and I think he might have, like, a crush on Gus? Question mark? I don't know. Jack is her best friend. I don't think we meet him in the Magnolia Parks books. I don't think we meet him till Daisy Haites. Then we also have this guy named Miguel. Miguel is Daisy Haites' bodyguard and kind of serves a similar purpose to Marcelly. He is the guy that's, like, with her all the time. Just making sure she doesn't get murdered. As you do. And then we also have Declan. Declan is, like, I think one of the more important of Julian's, like, henchmen, the people that work for Julian. They're friends, and Daisy and Declan had a thing where Daisy lied to Declan about how old she was, and, you know, something happened. But they're no longer together as well. Then we have this cop. His name is Killian. He's constantly investigating Julian because he knows that Julian is the head of a crime family, but it's hard to actually catch the crime family heads. You know, they're smart criminals. Those guys are thinkers. But he also has a crush on Daisy. So when he shows up to the house, he's got eyes on Daisy and on Julian. And he becomes a pretty big player. He shows up all the time. He's just, like, hanging out, investigating them. near constantly. So that's kind of the lay of the land. As far as like what these books are specifically about, Magnolia Parks is about Will, BJ, and Magnolia get together. Daisy, Haites, and Julian is about, couldn't tell you. It's about their sibling relationship. It's about Daisy and Christian. It's about a lot of different things. This is definitely a book that doesn't have like a super strong central plot arc, but is more of an exploration of the relationships between these characters. So I'm officially starting reading Magnolia Parks. I have the first 3 books checked out from my library. I'm going to be reading Magnolia Parks by Tessa Hastings. I'm really excited about it. Just like truly looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good like book. All I know, I've been like trying to really avoid spoilers. It's been all over the TikToks, but I've been really trying to avoid spoilers. All I know is it's like messy. It's like Gossip Girl in London. And I am here for it. I'm very excited to read it. I don't know why it's so small, like in the corner, but... Okay, I'm on page like 10 of Magnolia Parks, and I don't know how I feel about it. We've been given a lot of boys. We have like Henry, BJ, Christian, and probably some other guys. And like, I feel like the only identifying details we've been given about them is their eye color. Like, someone has brown eyes, someone has blue eyes, someone has hazel eyes. That's like too many. I'm on page 10. You can't throw that many characters at me in the beginning. And the only thing that tells them apart is their eye color. It's too much. But I love the name Magnolia, so that's a pro. No, but like, I'm obsessed. I'm on chapter 7, and I'm like, smitten. It is like so very melodramatic. Like, ring, ring. Lord's calling, and she wants her album back, but like it just like hits the spot, you know? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I can't be bothered to look at the camera. I want to look at myself. Okay, but truly I really thought I was gonna hate these books after the first couple pages, but now I'm on chapter 17 and I'm obsessed. It's so Chuck and Blair. It is, like, so much fun. I don't know. These books are, like, very uniquely written. Like, stylistically, the authors made some really interesting choices. But, like, mostly, like, the melodrama in the best ways. Only the best ways. I remember wondering if this was it. If this was the last time I'd ever see him. Him with the starry eyes and the hair I love to knot my hands up in. The most beautiful boy in every room. The great love of my life. How many loves do you get in a lifetime? I remember wondering that. How many people will look at me like he does? Not just like I'm the sun, but the whole goddamn universe. I just like cannot emphasize enough the amount of fun I'm having reading this book. Like, it is just so fucking fun. It's so good. Guys, I like really didn't think this was gonna happen. I thought it was gonna be like a 3-star read. Like, I thought it was gonna be similar to how I feel about the Addicted Calloway sisters, because I feel like it's the same group of people loving these 2 books. And I find that series, like, I like continue to read it. I don't like hate it, but like I don't love it. But like, I love this. I can literally never get the lighting right in these clips because like there's no window, but I can't face it directly because then you won't be able to see me because there's like a window and it'll be glaring in my glass. I wanted to give an update. I have like a bunch of tiny clips of my reactions to Magnolia Parks and Daisy Haites, but I wanted to give my thoughts. So first of all, let me just fill you in on where I'm at. So I'm about halfway through Daisy Haites right now, which is the second book in the Magnolia Park series. And so I'm going to give you my thoughts on the first book and then my thoughts on the second book, because that seems like a good order to do things in. Okay, great. So Magnolia Parks is this book about this girl. Her name is Magnolia Parks. And it's also about BJ. It's also about a bunch of other people. And Magnolia and BJ are Chuck and Blair. Like, period, end of story. They're like 75% Chuck and Blair, 25% Marianne and Connell from Normal People. But the setting is like Gossip Girl London. So, and also we don't have any of Sally Rooney's commentary on class, really. Because everyone is rich. There's like no class dynamics. We do get the name dropping of fashions from Gossip Girl. So if that was your cup of tea, perfect. I kind of like skim over those parts. This is making it sound like I hated it. I loved this book so much. I don't know if I would recommend I definitely wouldn't recommend this book for everyone. I think it's a very specific crowd, but the crowd it works for, which I am that crowd, it is like everything I could want. Sometimes when I read 5-star books, I'm like, if all books were this, I would never stop reading. And that was my experience reading this book. At least the first half. Things kind of slowed down for me a little bit in the last like third of Magnolia Parks. But the first half of the book, I was like, I could read this book forever. Because it is just like my favorite sort of thing to read. There's this definite sense, I think, very quickly that you get that there's like an inevitability, like Chuck and Blair. You're like, they're toxic AF, but like they're gonna end up together because either BJ is gonna end up with Magnolia or BJ is gonna end up dead. Like homeboy cannot live without her for very long. But he, since they've been broken up, we find out like why they broke up. I don't think we find out immediately. And ever since their breakup, Magnolia has been like in these long term, but they're like mostly like PR relationships. Like mostly like PR. Like she's maybe kissing, but she hasn't slept with any of these guys. BJ on the other hand has been sleeping with anything that moves. He is sleeping with like, 5 girls a week minimum. And just out there raging. But when he's not sleeping with other girls, he's hanging out with Magnolia. Like they will have like platonic sleepovers. Like they're still like good friends and are like kind of like walking around their feelings for each other because they still very deeply love each other. My favorite thing about BJ, and the reason I said this book is for me, is because, hold on, I'm texting with my sister about the Olivia Wilde's Florence Pugh, Don't Worry Darling drama with Harry Styles. We're talking about, I don't know if you've seen this video at this point. I imagine you would. There's a video that looks like Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine. Like he was sitting down for the premiere and he, like what would possess him to do that? Like that sounds, I like heard about it and I was like, there's no way that Harry Styles just like spat on Chris Pine. The video, it's him leaning down going, and then Chris Pine looking where he just spit. Like, BJ, like, as I said, BJ is going to either end up with Magnolia or he's going to end up dead. There's no situation in which BJ lives happily ever after with someone else. Or at least, even reading through the first book, I don't think this is a spoiler. I think this is, like, obvious. Yeah, I just like cannot see, like I think Magnolia could like move on, convince herself that like she wants to live another life. BJ is like not going to be able to like live without Magnolia. I do believe Magnolia could like have a life by herself without BJ. Like I think she could do it. I think she has enough like composure and like pulled togetherness to do so. But I think they're gonna end up together. I think their end game, like Chuck and Blair, Some of the clues that clued me into this, the fact that this is where I fell head over heels in love. Like I was already like pretty in love. Okay, this is like pretty early, but I think it might even be in the first chapter. We find out that BJ has 23 tattoos, and 21 of them are explicitly about Magnolia. And at some point, we do get them all listed out. Like Magnolia sits there and lists all of his tattoos and like what they are and where they are, and like based on context clues we can like kind of like put together the stories of like, oh, he is a bumblebee and like this is why, and like my personal favorite of his 21 tattoos that are explicitly about Magnolia is he does have the date of their first kiss tattooed on his thumb. And like, yeah, how are you gonna get married to someone else when you have the first date of your, like, you cannot they're like so it is like angsty and ridiculous, and they like cannot communicate, and they are so on again, off again, and like frustrating, but like I loved every single moment of it. Like I said, the ending for me got a little bit less like in love, just because we started to bring in like a lot of other characters, and I was like, did we care? There was like a love triangle from like a little before halfway, I think maybe a third of the way, but by the end we're like bringing in even more characters that are like involved in this drama, and I was like, I don't care. Like, more boys are in love with Magnolia? Cool. Guess what? Doesn't matter because Magnolia's in love with BJ. A little bit of that towards the end. But overall, I like truly adored this book. Like, it's the book for me. It is like, I know I like have talked about how I don't like books that are like a wander. Like, I don't like books that just kind of like don't have a central plot arc. But this for me had enough tension between like the will they won't they of BJ and Magnolia to like really carry the story. And so I didn't have issues with the fact that it's not like a traditional plot structure. I also really enjoyed the writing style. It is a very interesting writing style. It's very unique. It is not at all like literary. It is very much, they like will break the fourth wall and like talk to camera. And to camera. It reads very much like a television show in a lot of ways. Feels a little bit episodic. It feels like they will break the fourth wall and talk to the reader. There's a lot of like visual description of like outfit. I feel like those are things that I typically, if like someone was explaining that to me, those would typically not work for me, but I'm telling you, I'm a little obsessed with him. I'm gonna pull some quotes for you because I just like feel like I can't articulate how much I like adore this book without like pulling some quotes for ya. Yeah, this is in chapter 2 is when he says, her eyes flicker over me, presses her finger into the tattoo on my thumb, a little string bow forget-me-not. Got her a necklace from Tiffany's for our 1-month anniversary, which isn't a fucking thing, by the way, but I guess it is when you're 15 and you land the girl of your dreams. Anyway, she loved it. Lost it after a couple of years. They stopped selling them. First tattoo I got for her. They're all for her, though, with the exception of, this is new, and so he has a new tattoo. Like, the way that, because we're in both of their heads, so you get chapters from BJ's perspective and you get chapters from Magnolia perspective, and the way they talk about each other, just like, it is like the contemporary version of like fated mates. Like, it is. Like, there's always like soulmate type bonds in like these fantasy novels, and this is like the contemporary version, and I'm just like adoring it. I also, Tessa Hastings, who's the author, I follow her on Instagram now because like obsessed, and she was doing like a Q&A and she answered like some frequently asked questions, and one of them is like, how many books are there going to be? And she was like, oh, there's going to be 7 total in the Magnolia Parks universe. So there are books from Magnolia's perspective, and then I'll talk about Daisy's book in a second. There's going to be 3 Magnolia books, 4 Daisy books, and I was heartbroken. I was like, only 7? That's so many books. One. Also, I'm only a book and a half in. But I'm just like already heartbroken that this series is gonna have an end because I just like love it so much. Again, I don't think it's for everyone, but I think for the people that it's for, it's just gonna be like if it's for you, it's like gonna be great. It's gonna be like delicious. You're gonna love it. And so then obviously I immediately started in on Daisy Haites, which is the second book in the series. We kind of leave on like a mini, it's not like a big cliffhanger, but we get this like large reveal at the end of the book. So I guess it's kind of the opposite of a cliffhanger. We like get a big reveal. We don't get like the conclusion to that reveal. So like there's something really big revealed, and then the book just ends like pretty immediately after that. And that has been like a little hard for me to grapple with. I miss Magnolia and BJ. I don't want to read about Daisy. I don't know her. Anyway, I decided to start Daisy Haites. And my biggest problem with this, and this is just like, I think a little bit of the problem of the structure and the fact that I'm reading these back to back, maybe, is that I was just like so mad that I wasn't with Magnolia anymore, because we're in the same world. So the second book follows Daisy and 3 people actually. It follows Daisy, Christian, and Julian. And so Daisy is our girly, and then Christian is kind of her love interest, and she is Christian is like a friend of BJ and Magnolia. So we saw Christian quite a bit in the Magnolia Parks book, and then Julian is Daisy's brother. So we're following Daisy, her brother, and then her love interest essentially. And I was just like, I'm like halfway through the book and I'm finally feeling like I'm settling in, but I was just like so mad that I wasn't getting to hang out with Magnolia and BJ anymore, because that's all I really wanted to do. Even though it takes place in the same world, it is not like we're really following the same timeline of events. Like occasionally, especially from Christian's perspective, we will get a similar event. So these books kind of take place concurrently. So like Daisy Haites' books starts while Magnolia Parks' book is still going on. So like there's a trip that they take to Greece in the Magnolia Parks book that I just recently saw in the Daisy Haites book from Christian's perspective. So we got it from Magnolia and BJ's perspective, and now we're getting that same trip from Christian's perspective. But there's very few events like that. It's not like, you know, like Midnight Sun, where it's like all the same events from Edward's perspective. It is mostly a different story, because Daisy really was like, we saw her interspersed. I think that was one of the things that I was kind of like confused by. I knew that this was how the like books worked before I started, and I was confused with how little we saw Daisy in that first Magnolia Parks book. We like see her like just a couple times when she's interacting with Christian. Christian is like, here's Daisy, I brought her to this party. So we don't really see a ton of overlap, which is fine and interesting, and I'm really in this book. And honestly, like if I were to have read Daisy's book first, I think I probably would have felt a similar way when I had to start Magnolia's book. It is just jarring because these books are so like character and relationship focused and heavy, and we left Magnolia's and BJ's relationship on such like an open note, like unresolved, completely unresolved, that it feels kind of strange to be jumping into Daisy's story, because like we haven't wrapped everything up with the other plotline. But I've been told you have to read Daisy's book in between because Daisy's book kind of bridges the gap between Magnolia Parks 1 and Magnolia Parks The Long Way Home. A little bit confusing. Sometimes with indie publishing, like, our branding isn't super clarified. I also love the covers. I'm, like, gonna go back to Daisy. We're, like, having the most frantic review of these books, but the covers are, like, really, really interesting. They're very unique. They're, like, not super marketable, but I think they're, like, really iconic. So yes, Daisy. Let me tell you a little about Daisy. So Daisy is 20. She is also kind of a rich Londoner, but her family is not like high society London. Her family is one of the largest crime families in London. And so her brother Julian runs the crime family for them. So that's nice of him. Their parents died when she was 8. Julian was 18. So Julian is 10 years older than her. And we're getting Julian's perspective as well. Their, like, you know, main title is arms dealer, but they also do, like, a lot of, like, art thievery, which is, like, super fun. Again, if you just told me the premises of these two novels, I probably would have been like, Daisy is my girl, because I love mafia romances and art thievery. Like, it is delicious, and we are getting a little bit more of that, like, high crime drama mixed in with this one, which is, like, really fun. We're a little bit less, like, out on the town and a little bit more, I don't know, was that a London accent? No, it was not. Focused in on this family and kind of like the interrelationships between the family and like a little bit of a smaller network, I feel like, than we had Magnolia Parks, because Magnolia is like always out on the town, always networking, always like people, you know. And Daisy is also like in college trying to get her degree in something medical. I don't know if it's nursing, doctoring, pharmacology. I don't know. She's like trying to get her degree. She's in school, so we get little glimpses of that. But mostly it's about her and Christian, and she has a similar kind of relationship that Magnolia has to BJ with this guy named Romeo. But unlike BJ and Magnolia, it's like pretty clear that Romeo is not going to be for her forever, because Romeo does not have their first kiss tattooed on her thumb. So not looking good for Romeo, but he has saved her life 3 times. 3 separate times he's saved her life, we're told. And we're told about 2 of those times, and then a 3rd time is like very much alluded to, but it seems like it was like very traumatic. And then shortly after that 3rd time, they had a breakup again. And then shortly after that, like, Romeo did some shenanigans, and they've been broken up for a couple years as well at this point. But we are not following Romeo, so like probably he's not going to be the end love interest. We are following Christian, this guy that she has started having a thing with. Like I said, Christian is BJ and Magnolia's friend, but he's still a little bit in love with Magnolia Parks, because apparently it's very easy to fall in love with Magnolia Parks. And so we've got that tension, and Daisy is like starting to fall for Christian, but Christian is like still in love with Magnolia, and so it puts her in a tricky spot. Then we also have Julian, and we don't know who Julian's love interest is. We just keep getting these text messages that don't have a name attached, but we know that he has like a love interest, but his focus mostly has been just on running the crime family, and after his parents died has been on like keeping Daisy safe. Like, that's top priority. And so he hasn't really had time for love. But we are going to get to find his love. We're going to get to hear his love story, I'm sure, in these books. And I'm very excited about it, because Julian is like a precious gem of a criminal. We love a precious gem of a criminal. He loves art. They both do. Their like love of art is my favorite. I love art thieves who love art. What a beautiful time. And they're a lot of fun. I'm really like starting to enjoy it. I'm really like starting to sink into it. We do get the occasional guest appearance, like I said, of those two. And I did cry at one point, because BJ and Daisy had this moment, which I don't think we saw. Maybe we did. I don't remember. I don't think we saw this moment in the Magnolia Parks book, but BJ and Daisy are having this conversation at the bar. And BJ starts talking about Magnolia. And I was like, my babies, because I love them so much. Okay, let's see if I can pull that one up. I literally cried last night, because it said, BJ pushes his hands through his hair and shrugs. The boys and I, we swap war stories, locker room shit, you know. The only person I never tell them details about is Parks. Why? I frown. Because she's mine. He gives me a small smile that, even though it's not about me or for me, my heart thumps like a maniac anyway. Because I'm a sucker for romance. I love love. And Magnolia Parks is a fucking idiot if she doesn't pick BJ Ballantine. But if she doesn't, then great. Maybe I'll have a crack, because that smile is perfect. Anyway, I did tear up, because BJ Ballantine talking about Magnolia, they have like a longer conversation, but that is like my favorite part. That's the part that like literally made me tear up, because he's like, because she's mine. I just like love the inevitability of BJ and Magnolia. Like, I love it. I love it. We don't know exactly where Daisy's gonna land. We have suspicions because, again, we're getting Christian's perspective. So, like, I suspect Christian and Daisy are gonna end up together in the end. But, like, I don't know how we're gonna get there. And there's also, like, a lot of other characters happening. And, like, I'm not as certain as I am with BJ and Magnolia. So, like, objectively, I think their story is more interesting. But those BJ Magnolia lines just, like, hit. That's where we're at with Magnolia Parks. I didn't realize I was going to have that much to say. I just talked for like 30 minutes. Part of that was me texting my sister about Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde because that situation is crazy. But a large chunk of it was me just being like, aren't they the sweetest? Anyway, I will keep you updated. I'm probably going to finish Daisy today, hopefully, and then start on The Long Way Home. I've heard Long Way Home has like a crazy cliffhanger ending, and I'm like really eager to get back to Magnolia. I know I just said it, like I'm really enjoying Daisy, and I am enjoying Daisy, but like I miss Mags and BJ. I call her Mags. No one else in the story does. That's when you know I like truly like love a book, is when I give them a nickname. When I give them a nickname, it's over. That means I truly adore it. And I call Magnolia Mags. I'm like, Mags and I. Okay, it's very hot and I'm in the library parking lot, so this is semi-embarrassing because people are coming in all around me. But I just wanted to say my experience with Daisy Haites has been like the opposite of Magnolia Park, in that I'm enjoying it more the more I read. Like, I'm at this like 60% mark and I'm like really invested now. I'm also finding it like so interesting the way in which we're getting to see Magnolia in a new light, because I think in Magnolia's books we really see her as like the protagonist, and like she's not a great person all the time. I am like obsessed with the way that I started explaining this in the library parking lot, but then there were people around, and so I had to leave. But I'm obsessed with the way that we get to see Magnolia in a new light in Daisy's book, because the only ways we get to see Magnolia in Magnolia's book are through Magnolia's eyes, which like she's a little judgmental of herself, and then through BJ's eyes. And BJ thinks that Magnolia hung the moon and the stars. You know, like he just does. And being able to see her through like Christian's eyes has been enlightening. But also Christian is like, you know, my least favorite character in the Magnolia Parks books. Okay, he drives me bananas, and I like him more in this book, although I'm not 100% sold on him. Anyway, it's getting so good. I'm on chapter 50, and something just crazy happened, and it's just like so good. 5 stars. I mean, I'm not done with it yet, but like 5 stars. It's so good. It's so good. We're finally finding out what happened to Daisy. The time she won't talk about. She's talking about it now. This book is so good. I love this series so much. I don't think it's for everyone, but goddamn, it's for me. Am I crying in this parking garage? Yes, I am. Correct. That is correct. I don't know if I could have selected a worse spot for lighting in my home, but here we are. I probably could have finished Daisy Haites last night, but I did not, because Julian is making some bad choices at this point. Like 80% in. According to my ebook, I have like 30 pages left. Last night I stopped when I had like 50 pages left, because Julian was making some bad choices. Then I started reading this morning before I got out of bed, and Daisy is making choices in response to Julian's choices, and I'm just like, it's not gonna go well. It's not, there's like no way in which this goes well, and I'm very concerned about it, to the point that I don't want to continue reading. I have like a pit in my stomach, but I shall continue reading. I shall press on. Romeo is involved. Romeo is here. I don't think that bodes well for Romeo. I'm quite concerned. Oh my god. Wow, that's not how I expected that going. Don't mind me. Man, this book has me like weeping. This book got real in a way that Magnolia Parks did not. Whew. You know, Max has, a pretty easy life. Especially compared to Miss Daisy. Hello. I don't want to start Magnolia Parks Long Way Home because I want to hang out with Daisy. I'm having the opposite problem I had before. I think this is Tessa Hastings' biggest flaw in her series, is that, like, She leaves the books on like too big of cliffhangers and then makes us read about someone else. I don't care what Magnolia's doing. Feeling just like a little emotional over having to start this. I like pulled up the book and was like, okay, time to start Magnolia Park's Long Way Home. And then I was like, I don't freaking want to read that. Like, it starts off with Magnolia talking about hipsters. Hipsters aren't my favorite people. They used to be my least favorite kind of person, but actually, they've been usurped. I don't care. Sorry, Mags is like my baby. I love Mags, I love BJ, but like, I don't care about them right now. I just want to know what the haps is with Daisy. Is that a crime? I don't know if this series would have been better served by like 2 separate series or like interconnecting their stories a little bit more. I need someone to set up a tandem read for Magnolia Parks. Wanted to give a little Magnolia Park's Long Way Home update because I read a bunch of it last night. I started it last night and I'm now like 33% of the way in. This one has already got me crying. The first Magnolia Parks book I did not tear up in. As you may have seen, I was sobbing at the end of Daisy Haites. So also the Queen has just died. And a little update if you want to know where I am temporally in like real world time. The Queen has died like an hour ago. So I'm like kind of reeling from that because like Magnolia Parks takes place in London. It feels apt. 2, I don't think I will be alive for another queen. Like likely. I likely will not be alive to see another Queen of England. Like we got kings for days. Because it's going to be King Charles and then it'll be Prince William and then it'll be Prince George. So unless Prince George like defects from the throne or kicks the bucket before me, which I like truly hope that he does not because that sounds quite sad for him. Neither here nor there. It is a little bit heavier than the first book. We've learned a little bit more about Mags and BJ's past and it is not always the lightest, chipperest little thing. And there was an event from their past that they were explaining, and that is what made me cry. That is what made me tear up. But also while I was reading last night, I have literally only been reading this book in the wee hours of the morning. I've been like not sleeping well. Very stressed about something related to publishing in my book. Nothing real, nothing important. It will have blown over by the time you're watching this video, but stressful nonetheless. It's mostly stuff I made up in my head. I've made up a very horrid story about what is happening, and I have no evidence to support this story, but it is still stressing me out. So I've been having a hard time sleeping, and I've just been reading Magnolia Park's books in the night. But as I was reading it last night, I did realize that this book truly is like a Wuthering Heights retelling. Like, not really. Like, how many similarities do they share to the actual plot structure of Wuthering Heights? Like, not that much, but I think the core motivation is the same. Like, BJ and Magnolia are Heathcliff and Catherine. Like, they are. And then I was pulling up, then she made a reference to it. She was like, they're like Bronte soulmate level. And I was like, yeah, I just said that in my room by myself. But I was then pulled up Wuthering Heights quotes and was like, would they say these about each other? Would Magnolia say this about BJ? He's more myself than I, whatever our souls are made out of. His and mine are the same. Yeah. There probably is a quote that is almost identical to that. Magnolia would also say, if all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be. And if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. I actually think we get a quote incredibly similar to that in the first book. This one. Do you think BJ would say this about Tom England? Yes, I do. If Tom England loved her with all the powers of his puny being, he couldn't love her as much in 80 years as I could in one day. Again, BJ would say this. Like, they are the toxicity, but like the like soulmate Bronte level, like meant to be together of Wuthering Heights. It's a Wuthering Heights retelling in a Gossip Girl setting. Anyway, as far as like what is actually happening in this newest book, without spoiling anything, they're still being like, they're just my like dumb, sweet little babies who cannot communicate with each other to save their little lives. My little dumb babies. I'm really enjoying it. I do miss Daisy. We haven't gotten a single Daisy appearance. I'm 33% of the way in, and I'm like, excuse me, what is Daisy Haites doing? We've seen, like, Christian, obviously. Christian has popped up a few times. And, like, we've, like, referenced Daisy's existence. And we have seen Julian. We saw Julian briefly. And I was like, my baby Julian. Welcome, darling. We saw him super briefly, but we have not seen Daisy. We've not really heard what Daisy is up to. We just, like, know that Daisy is... Like, the references to Daisy have been that, like, Christian and Daisy were dating. Which we, like, obviously know. And I just, like, hope Daisy shows back up soon, because I miss her. that's my updates for Magnolia Parks Long Way Home. I'm having a really great time. The dumb babies are still being dumb babies who don't know how to talk to each other. But they're, like, so sweet, and I love them. Love them to death. We just found out that BJ got a new tattoo a few chapters back, and that was a LOL moment. A laugh out loud through my book at the wall moment. BJ and his stupid little tattoos. That dummy. He actually has a couple new tattoos. We've heard about a couple of his... He's gotten several new tattoos. BJ is the sweetest. I love him. He's a dum-dum. Magnolia is also a dum-dum. They are the villains in their own story, much like Wuthering Heights. Just finished. I didn't love the ending. Like, the very ending. The last chapter. Kind of felt like a slap in the face out of, like, literally nowhere. Also, what's happening with Jules? Yeah, a little concerned about him. Like, I just didn't need it. Like, we could have just had 2 books. I've just been done. You know? Sad it's over. I miss them. No new book until November. I'll share more thoughts in the morning. It's my last Magnolia Parks update. I finished Magnolia Parks over the weekend. It is like Monday now. So this is my final update on Long Way Home and my like overall thoughts. So I think I updated you at like the halfway point, and I said I was really missing Daisy, which is true. We get to see more Daisy and Julian in the second half of the book, which was very exciting. I'm super excited to see some of the scenes and things that they're in the second half from Daisy's perspective, because our next book is a Daisy book. But yeah, that was very exciting. This book is definitely like, I think a little bit more emotional than the first Magnolia, like definitely more emotional than the Magnolia Parks, the first book. We really uncover a little bit more about like Magnolia and BJ's history, why they both as individuals are the way they are, and also why they are the way they are like as a couple. I like cried multiple times. It was good. I enjoyed it. Still my favorite, if I was going to rank the books, Daisy Haites is my favorite, which like I whined when I had to start that book. Like, you heard me. I whined, but like it's so good. It's so delightful. Despite the fact I was a whiny baby about it. I love Daisy Haites the most, followed by probably Long Way Home and then Magnolia Parks. But like I love all of them. This is a 5-star series for me. Like I said, I think I've mentioned it probably a couple times because I'm really worried that people are going to take this as like a recommendation because I loved it so much. But I really don't think this book is going to work for like a lot of people. The relationships are frustrating. Like, if this is something that would frustrate you, like, they're gonna frustrate you. They are on again, off again, on again, off again. There's not like a central story arc, which I think sometimes is like the saving grace of some of these stories, because even if there's like little relationship things that bother you, if there's like a central or story arc that is like strong enough to carry you through the book, then you're gonna be fine. The writing is like really kind of like a unique writing style. It feels very indie romance. Indie romance is like a different flavor than traditional romance, but I feel like it feels unique even in the indie romance space. It is a special book, but I think if it works for you, like, it really is going to work, and it really, really, really worked for me. I am going to get into spoilers now, so, like, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I want to talk about a few spoilery things, so if you haven't read, if you don't want spoilers, you should leave. If you don't care about spoilers, you can stick around. I definitely think this is one of the books where you, even if you know the spoilers, it's not going to, like, ruin the book for you. So, let's talk about Magnolia and BJ, and then we'll go back and do Daisy Haites, because I think I, like, am kind of confused on why the Magnolia and BJ storyline didn't wrap up at the end of Long Way Home. Like, I kind of wish we would have just cut that last chapter out. Like, just not had the last chapter. Just, like, had BJ and Magnolia get engaged and be done with them. Which, like, sounds dramatic. I think we have a whole other book from BJ and Magnolia's perspective. But, like, Bridget has died. And that, like, felt like a slap in the face. Like, it did. It just, like, seemed kind of unnecessary. Like, I'm sure the next book will be kind of dealing with, like, the emotional fallout of that and will cause turmoil in their relationship, I'm sure. But I just, like, felt like we, like, got resolution. Like, this whole time, the thing that has been, like, pulling the story forward is this, like, will they, won't they make it work between BJ and Magnolia? And they, like, finally did make it work. And now we're having to deal with this Bridget stuff. And, I mean, I'm, like, not going to pass total judgment because we haven't really seen how this is going to play out. But I don't love it conceptually. Again, like, maybe it'll work out really well and I'll really enjoy the way it's dealt with in the next book, but I'm unsure about it. Things I did truly love about Long Way Home, where I loved the Julian and Magnolia relationship. I cannot wait to see that from Julian's perspective. Like, what a treat. I was a little worried that Magnolia was going to break poor my baby Julian's heart, and, like, I love Julian more than I love Mags, so, like, watch out, Mags. I loved that. I am really curious to see kind of what happened between Julian and Daisy, because last we left, Daisy was like, goodbye forever, and then we see Daisy again in Long Way Home, and they're like BFFs again. Like, she's living at Julian's house again. Excited to see what happens there. I'm excited to see if her and Christian make it work. Like, I'm really excited for Daisy's book. I think this book set up Daisy's book much better than either of the other books kind of did, if that makes sense. Like, I think we were set up really nicely for the Daisy book after Long Way Home, where I felt like we weren't set up for the first Daisy book, and then we weren't set up for Long Way Home again. Like, those were kind of like the transition points were really rough. Julian and Daisy, I'm just really eager to see where that went. I loved the way the Daisy Haites story wrapped up. Like, I thought it was so engaging and interesting, and like kept me on my toes, and like had me gasping out loud and crying when Daisy was like, I can't do this to her brother. Crazy. Oh, also, we find out she's dating Tiller at the beginning of Long Way Home. So we get to explore that relationship too. I'm excited for it. I'm going to keep reading these. These books are like messy in like the best ways. They're just like a joy to read. They're just like truly a joy. That is all I have for my Magnolia Parks reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this series. I'm like so excited to continue with it. I think the next book is supposed to come out in November. That's what I read on Instagram, and I'm excited because it's a Daisy book, and she's also said that there's going to be 2 more Daisy books, 1 more Magnolia book, 3 more Daisy books, 1 more Magnolia book. I really enjoyed them. Like I said, I don't think this series is for everyone, but it was just like a really fun, perfect series for me. Subscribe if you're interested in more reading content. I promise sometimes I give like recommendations rather than just like warnings about books. And leave a comment if you've read these books or if you feel like you would hate them. That's fine either way. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.